What movie are you talking about?
The Suicide Squad. This is the reboot slash sequel to the terrible 2016 film, but this one is written and directed by James Gunn, who you might know from his movies The Guardians of the Galaxy over with Marvel and the MCU. Now, this version of the Suicide Squad stars a series of good-looking people, including Margot Robbie and Idris Elba. I did see this in theater on opening weekend, and I saw it with a muted, partially full crowd. You might have seen it on HBO Max, where it's streaming at the same time. So let's get started with my vague thoughts, my non-spoiler thoughts. So I am trying to be less negative these days. I know I give a lot of negative reviews. So this will end up being a much shorter review than I normally do. The movie, it isn't bad by any means, but I'm not sure what else it really is. It certainly is not good, though. It's mostly an absence of bad moments, and I know compared to the dumpster fire version we got in 16, that an absence of bad looks like a triumph. So the movie certainly doesn't take itself very seriously, which is nice, but that also makes it hard to levy any real complaints at it. So does it have a strong emotional core? No. Does it make any grand statements about society? Also, no. Is it a fresh take on the superhero genre? Not at all. It's a reboot of a recent film, after all. And that's all probably okay, because the movie doesn't want to be any of those things. So is it high art or a complex character study? Of course not. James Gunn isn't trying to be Martin Scorsese, and he won't claim that he's trying to be. At least, hopefully, he won't be claiming that. The problem with not being any of these things, or really anything other than a series of sort of fun scenes, is that the movie is bizarrely unremarkable, unmemorable. The scenes are fine while you're watching them, but they never really elevate above a gory version of other scenes that we've all seen a million times before. It does have a couple of cool new characters, though, so there are some positives here. Now, overall, it does seem like this is just a lesser studio trying to make their own Guardians of the Galaxy. It goes for a similar style of juvenile humor. It features an ensemble cast of unknown miscreants. It casts a professional wrestler playing against type. And it even has a furry rodent that's there to stir our hearts. And they even poached the same director to make the film for them. However, this ends up being the college drama club version of the Broadway show that it wants to be. James Gunn, he might have had a fastball back when he made the first Guardians film, but at this point he's not throwing strikes anymore. I have two main problems with the Suicide Squad, and one's a me problem and one is an it problem. The it problem is that this movie is toothless somehow. I think it has a great setup. The U.S. government conscripts a group of supervillains to do nearly impossible tasks, keeping them in line with the constant threat of death. And this allows us, the audience, a different viewing experience in that these are not people we're normally rooting for. There's no Superman, Spider-Man, there's no Avengers. It's that we're watching the bad guys trying to do good things. And that's what is rewarding, is because we're watching them struggle to choose to do the right thing for once. They don't want to run into a burning fire and save people. Instead, they deep down, they want to be throwing fuel in that fire. And they want to laugh and watch the world burn. And it's a fun struggle getting to watch them go through this internal struggle. And then as an audience member, we don't have to be happy for them because we know that they only did something good because they didn't want to have their heads literally blown off. And this should be a great twisted viewing experience, different than what we're used to. But James Gunn, for some reason, decided to skip out on the bad guys being bad part. Sure, we're told that they're bad people. They're in prison. Do you mean that the U.S. government might imprison people that aren't actually bad people? But save one character, and I'm trying to keep this spoiler-free, we have no reason to believe that this mission is a struggle for any of these people. And the more good that we see them do without it bothering them, the more they look like a poor man's Avengers and less like the Dirty Dozen. They're the slightly stained seven. After a little bit of dry cleaning, they'll be good as new. And then the second issue, I fully admit is a me problem. Humor is subjective, but this movie just simply isn't very funny. There's a lot of what are recognizable as jokes. They're just not overly clever or interesting jokes. I did chuckle a few times, and I rolled my eyes a few times more, and for the rest of the jokes, I just sat there in stony silence. It's possible that these jokes would have hit better for me if I was still in 7th grade, but it's also possible that these jokes were written by someone currently in 7th grade. And good for them. We got to boost that college application resumes early. Spoiler section, I'm just going to skip the spoiler section today. I don't have enough opinions to want to nitpick it to death, and I'll just leave you to enjoy or not enjoy it to your discretion. So, ultimately, should you care about Suicide Squad? I don't think so, but I also don't think most people regret watching this. It's a safe, low-effort watch, and hey, you might find yourself going back to watch it again and again, trying to figure out why you can't seem to remember what happened the first time you watched it. So let's move on now to one good thing, one bad thing, because even the worst movies have some good sliver or factor to it, and even the best movies ever made have some nitpick that you can make. So one good thing for the Suicide Squad is the Ratcatcher character, Ratcatcher 2. She's an awesome character, and she added a lot of creative fun to the gang solving problems. She has her own brand of intelligence and empathy, and I think it brought a lot to the story. Now, one bad thing, and I hate to say it, but this is a career worst performance from Viola Davis. She never really came across as an actual badass, but as someone who really wants us to know that one day she wants to be a badass. And today is not that day. So what would I give this movie? I gave this movie a 67 out of 100, which is a big meh. So lastly, on to recommendations. If you liked The Suicide Squad, obviously Guardians of the Galaxy would probably be right up your alley. Volume 1 is far, far superior to Volume 2, which suffers from a lot of the problems that I think The Suicide Squad has. The new Army of the Dead movie is on Netflix, and is of a similar style and feel to Suicide Squad. I liked it a little bit more. But the best recommendation that I have today is not actually a movie, but the Amazon Prime TV show, The Boys. I think it's a much better take at what the Suicide Squad's going for. And while you're there, I think you should check out an animated show, Invincible. It is excellent. So that's today's review of The Suicide Squad. If you have any thoughts, comments, questions, feel free to leave them below. Otherwise, you can check out my blog where I have several years of written reviews. You can follow me at Twitter at Greg Pace, Ohio. Otherwise, I hope you keep checking out my reviews here, and I hope you have a great day.